sometimes a third tone, for example, would change into a second tone under certain circumstances. For example, if there's a third tone and then a third tone again, the first third tone turns to a second tone.
What is it that I'm talking about here? In so many words, I'm talking about how to speak Chinese the way that native speakers do, which is fluently and not stringing one tone to another like you see in the dictionary. Like you wouldn't say ni hao, right? You would say ni hao. So the first tone changes to a second tone when next to a third tone. This all sounds super confusing, but the whole point of what I'm going to talk about now in this review is for a tool that helps make it really easy to be able to string words and sentences together in Chinese so that it sounds natural. It's easy to say, and it's also more understandable when you're speaking to native Chinese speakers. So that's what this is about. Hope you enjoy the review.
See here we've logged into the main page that you'll see when you log into your MandarinHQ account. And if you scroll down, you can see the Chinese pronunciation gym tone transformations, which is what we'll be looking at today for review. Let's go in here and see what they have. There is a course content with all your lessons here. Let's start with the first one, Tones 101, a quick intro to Chinese tones. Click here. And here we have the lesson. So it has a progress bar here at the top that I can see, which personally I love that because I like to see how much more I need to do before I'm finished with the lesson. And over here we can see a quick table of contents for all of the different parts of this lesson. We start here with a video, which looks like an intro video. It's just 3 minutes long. So let's watch that. Water. And there are some additional notes we can look at here if we want to find out more. Otherwise, it looks like we need to start the quiz. So let's hit start quiz. And it's going to ask us a series of questions. How many basic tones are there in Mandarin? 4. And we're going to get our results. Nice. Okay, so we have all the answers are correct. Now we can mark this as complete. I have to say, as a Chinese learner, I love that they're putting so much emphasis on the tones. When I first got to China, I had heard some rumors that the tones don't really matter. Trust me, they do. Like you may be able to get away with not perfect tones for every single word if you can say everything really quickly in a sentence. If some of the tones are off, they could still be understood. But in general, the tones are critical to speaking Chinese and understanding Chinese. There are so many homonyms in the language that the tones are absolutely necessary. So I like to see that there's this special emphasis laid on just going through all the tones. And so far from what I see, the platform is very easy to follow. You just start from the top and work your way down. It's getting progressively more difficult and into detail, which is great. Let's just take a quick look at the second lesson, how to pronounce and remember the 4 tones. It looks like the format is very similar to what we looked at in the first lesson. The video is a little longer, so this one's around 8 minutes, and then below it again with notes and then a quiz to reinforce what you've learned. Leave your comments below, and I can see that the admin here has answered pretty much everything, which is great. So they're very engaged with their learners and aware when they have questions. This person is a Chinese native speaker, so it's like you have your own access to a tutor as well in the platform, so that's great. So you work your way through all of these. Then look at this. We have mastering tone pairs, part one, part two, part three. So it's very in-depth look at going through the tones. It seems like it's broken up into really nice bite-sized pieces. You don't have to spend a whole hour, for example, on a lesson. You can just do them probably about 10 minutes at a time. So you can study in an amount of time that's convenient for you, be it 10, 20, 30, whatever you have the capacity for at the moment. But it looks like you don't have to sit down for several hours to get through a lesson, and then it's going to record all your progress here. I really like the quiz aspect of it, that it's interactive, and of course, the fact that you can leave individual comments and that they will answer you is really excellent to get that kind of feedback.
As you go through more and more of the lessons, you start to understand why they're calling this tool the a gym, because it's really all about drills and ways to just get you to nail those tones over and over again so that becomes natural to you for you to speak it. And that's really great because usually when we talk about tones in the classroom, we're just talking about one vocabulary word. But that's not really how the language works. You need to be able to string those together with other words in order to form a sentence. And using the tones separately one by one, it's so difficult to get it right and to sound like a native speaker and to be clearly understood. So this kind of training is very essential to being able to speak not only accurately, but also just comfortably and not feel like you're struggling and overthinking about all this tonal information.
Let's then take a look to see what the home page for the course looks like after we've done a little bit here. Okay, so see now here we have a progress bar and we can see how far we've gone. And we've got a check mark here now to show us that we're done with that course. So it's very easy to exit the site and then pop back in. It'll have all of your progress marked down here so you don't have to remember where you were. You can jump back in and you can even go back to previous lessons to review those. So it's very easy to navigate and use, and then it's pretty extensive. This is just all about the tones. I've had a lot of teachers for Chinese who were Chinese themselves, and I think for them it's difficult sometimes to understand how difficult the tones are for people learning Chinese as a second language, especially coming from a language family that is not even Asian at all. So it makes it more challenging. And so having someone break those down into such detail is really critical because this is basically before you even learn your first word, you need to understand this. Otherwise, if you just jump right into trying to do to speaking a lot of words without understanding the tones, you're going to keep getting corrected over and over again when you're talking to people, and it's going to get really obnoxious. So it's worth it, definitely, to lay this foundation down.
I just want to insert a quick note while we're on the topic of the cost of this course. And the at the time of the review, the course cost $67. That's for lifetime access. So I don't know about you, but I often have gone to do these subscription based learning and think, oh, I'll spend like 6 months or 1 year on this and then I'll be done with it. But then life gets in the way and I don't end up actually spending the time that I had expected, and the subscription just keeps running on and on. So with these subscription based learning platforms, I've spent way more than $67 over the course of my lifetime as a user for them. So although the initial access costs $67, I think in the long run it's very affordable and is a worthy investment.
Because you will learn some things that you won't necessarily pick up on your own that'll make it a lot easier. Because sometimes we see the tone changes actually according to the word that comes after it. So Sometimes a third tone, for example, would change into a second tone under certain circumstances. For example, if there's a third tone and then a third tone again, the first third tone turns to a second tone. So those kind of things, they don't really get reflected in Chinese dictionaries or in other Chinese learning applications, but that's so critical to when you're speaking. And so here it looks like they're going to go through all of those things. They're talking about tone pairs and why that's important. And that's not something that's typically spoken about, but it is very essential, especially if you want to speak in a way that's easy for the people who are listening to you to understand. If you just read the tones one by one from a dictionary, for example, it's not going to sound right. It's going to sound so strange. And so you need to kind of get some of that background. And it's actually pretty easy to catch once you understand that there are really logical rules behind it. So this tool is using before you get deeper into your Chinese studies. I wish that they had had something like that when I had first started learning Chinese because this would have helped a lot. Overall, it looks super clean and easy to follow. You get this feedback from actual Mandarin speakers who will answer your questions. And it's just very easy to navigate and it's recording all of your progress. Also checked out how the website works on mobile. And although they don't have a mobile app, the website itself is responsive, so it looks really nice on mobile and can be used really well on mobile. Obviously, you'll need an internet connection, but these days you pretty much always have one anyway, so it's not really a hindrance. So it actually is something that you can do on the go without a desktop computer very comfortably. So you can go through these lessons in those spare moments that you have here and there versus having a textbook with you and having to spend, maybe an hour or 2 hours studying. It's so much more effective. I know they've done studies on this too, that it's more effective to learn in these smaller bite-sized chunks. And so the way that the videos are laid out in these small pieces and how it works really well on the mobile interface too makes it just really nice to fit into even busy lifestyles that people might have.